Good evening. I'm Charles Payne. Just a couple hours ago, President Trump naming his new national security advisor, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, 1 week after the ouster of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. McMaster, a veteran of both Iraq and the Afghanistan war, is a career Army officer and military strategist who literally wrote the book on correcting faulty war strategy. Trump sitting arm in arm with his new national security chief, touting his credentials to the press.
General H.R. McMaster will become the national security advisor. He's a man of tremendous talent and tremendous experience. I watched and read a lot over the last 2 days. He is highly respected by everybody in the military, and we're very honored to have him.
The president also naming acting National Security Advisor Keith Kellogg as National Security Council Chief of Staff and indicated former UN Ambassador John Bolton will also be named to his security team. Joining me now to discuss, Steve Rogers, Andrew Peek, and Scott Mann. Scott, let me start with you. Universally, all I'm seeing so far are just rounds of applause for this election.
Yeah. Hey, Charles, thanks for having me on. You know, as a Green Beret, I worked around a lot of talented combat leaders, and that kind of leadership, I always called it rooftop leadership. The kind of leaders that would go up on a rooftop or a fire base and defend even if others didn't follow. That's the kind of leadership that this work requires, and that is definitely who H.R. McMaster is. He's lived it. He's done it. I mean, he's very innovative, but he's also got a ton of experience in these rough places, and he really knows what we're up against.
Yeah, Andrew, to that point, the first active duty chief since Colin Powell, rather, 3-star general, Iraq, Afghanistan, on-hand knowledge of this. He accordingly, he's written a book on how to deal with this, and I think it gives everyone great confidence that we'll resolve these Middle East conflicts, at least from a military point of view, sooner rather than later.
That's right, at least the NSC side. You know, he's such an intellectual and physical powerhouse. You know, in Afghanistan, when I served with him, he was nicknamed the Right Reverend H.R. McMaster because he was such a forceful personality and could argue so effectively any policy position he had. And I think especially dealing with a cabinet and a White House that's filled with a lot of larger-than-life personalities, I think that's going to be a quality that's going to serve him very well in the wars to come.
Andrew, let me ask you, because a lot has been made over and you brought up the point of these larger-than-life personalities, whether or not he'll be able to bring his people in, what kind of heads will be butted, some of the scuttlebutt that's surrounding this particular pick and some of the other recent nominees.
Well, I think actually this is where being an active duty military officer serves him well, because in virtually no military commands can the new commander bring in an entirely new team. Usually they inherit the team that comes with it. And then add a few of their own people. So I think that was attractive to the administration, since he wasn't going to wholesale send Flynn's people out the door, but just tinker perhaps with it around the edges.
We've got our good friend in studio with us, Steve Rogers. Steve, again, everyone's applauding this. Senator McMahon, a whole lot of other people who've been, even on the GOP side, who've had some differences with President Trump. This is a universally loved nominee, in part because, selection rather, in part because if you think about the intellectual prowess that he brings with this, and you match it up with the legend of General Mattis, we've got two guys who really not only have walked the walk, but they're great thinkers.
A very brilliant choice on the part of the president. Charles, in 2014, when the general was given his 3rd star, he was known as the 21st century general. He had enough knowledge and intellect to look forward and to build our future forces for 21st century challenges. So this is what's exciting about him. This general doesn't only look at what's happening today, but he has vision, and he can pretty much predict what we need in the future.
Scott, on that note, what are the new needs? What are the unique aspects of how we fight war, particularly in the Middle East, and how we try to resolve this long, ongoing conflict that everyone wants to just kind of get out of?
Well, look, Charles, one of the biggest challenges we have is Islamist violent extremists who operate, in these marginalized places like Iraq and Afghanistan, but yet have global reach. And it is going to take the kind of innovation that McMaster has. And I'll tell you what else it's going to take is his willingness to push back, which he's demonstrated. He'll push back if it's a stir and repeat kind of strategy that hasn't worked in the last 15 years.
Are you saying he'll push back against the commander in chief?
He'll have to, and I think that'll be a necessary requirement for this position because, you know, what we've done for the last 15 years hasn't worked too well, has it?
Well, no, it hasn't, or we wouldn't be 15 years and counting. And on that note, Andrew, we saw the launch of Mosul. I guess I was a little cynical because it happened at a time under President Obama where I thought it was time to coincide with the victory going into November, maybe a boost for Hillary Clinton. Now it's dragging along, it's bumping along, and, you know, not a lot of red flags out there. Should there be?
Well, what was holding back the Mosul attack was the logistical and intelligence support that was so that the Iraqi army has had such a tough time integrating into its operations. So I think simply it just took a long time for that to catch up. I was also a little cynical, and I was like, oh, well, this is going to be right before the election. But no, I think the real answer is just that, like a lot of developing world militaries, the Iraqi army has some trouble with support functions.
You know, Steve, a lot has changed. We have Vice President Pence with the Secretary General of NATO today. The world has changed. It's become a lot more complex. Fighting war has changed dramatically. You're extremely confident that McMaster is the guy who understands the past enough, but the present enough to get us prepared?
Not only that, Charles, but he has gained and earned the respect of people from the Joint Chiefs of Staff down to the soldier in the field, the sailors on the sea, and the airmen in the air. But he's also gained the respect of foreign leaders and foreign military leaders around the world.
That's key, isn't it, Steve? Because we've heard so much about the esprit de corps. I mean, yeah, listen, we were a rudderless ship, let's face it. Our military was a rudderless ship under President Obama. We didn't have any clear lines. It didn't feel like we were fighting wars to win them. He disdained war, but he still mired in it from day one. And it just felt like a feckless approach to it, and it really got to the average soldier, didn't it?
It sure did, and it's a matter of respect, and our military friends here on the air with us can tell you that even our enemies, when we sit across from them at a table, there is this mutual respect, warrior versus warrior. We have a warrior now, but a good warrior who knows his stuff.
Scott, can you give us an assessment then? How do you think things will go from here? I know it's tough. We've been muddled in these conflicts for a long time, and new ones keep popping up. And there's a unique aspect of ISIS being able to attack us in the West through lone terrorists or even whatever, organized terror operations from out of the Middle East.
No, I appreciate it. I look at this a lot in my book, Game Changers, and my view on this is that this is going to be a really long war. We need to settle into this one. Even though we're going to go after ISIS stronger than we have in a long time, my sense, Charles, is that this global narrative that ISIS puts forward of, the apocalypse, it draws a lot of folks in, and they are immersed in some rough places. And to ferret them out is going to require us mobilizing communities in these places to stand on their own. And that's going to take a bottom-up approach, and it's going to take some time. It won't happen in one administration. You mark my words.
Really? Wow. That's shocking to hear, Andrew. Listen, we knew candidate Trump said he'd have an ISIS strategy within 30 days. Of course, he's not going to articulate it or share it with the world. He repeated that over the weekend, how dumb it would be to do that. But having said that, do you feel like he's got the right pieces in place in terms of now his military leadership?
I do, absolutely. I'm not as pessimistic as Scott, but I'm an intelligence officer. That's a new role for me. I think once the capture of Mosul is finished and the go-ahead is given to the Syrian Kurds outside of ISIS's capital of Raqqa in Syria, the ISIS project is going to come to an end very quickly. I think McMaster is exactly the right person to handle this with his experience of fighting in northern Iraq.
All right, gentlemen, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Vice President Pence, as I mentioned, goes to